Hello and welcome to another episode of the FemiNinja Project, and thank you so much for being here. As always, I have a fascinating guest with me today, and this guy is going to teach us how to be, I'm not going to say master communicators, but to improve our ability to communicate with others. His name is Brenden Kumarasamy, and he is the founder of MasterTalk, where he coaches ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communicators in their industry. That's pretty important if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur. He has a very popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk, which provides free access to communication tools for everyone all over the world. So I was looking at his website today, looking at his YouTube channel. The guy is amazing. Brenden, thank you so much for being here and welcome to the show.
Cheryl, the pleasure is absolutely mine. Thanks for having me.
You are welcome. I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time. So tell us your story. How did you become this master communicator? What was it that sparked your interest to pursue this channel?
Absolutely, Cheryl. So it all started in college university. I went to business school and I did these things called case competitions. Think
Oh,
of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while
okay.
other guys my age were playing like basketball or baseball and basketball, I think I just said basketball twice, but
That's
anyways,
okay.
it's fair enough.
It's a very popular sport.
There you go. So I wasn't like many of those guys. I did the
Mhm.
nerd version of that, which was presentations competitively. And that's how I learned how to speak. But then
Mm.
as I got older, I started to coach a lot of the students, not because I was a coach, but because the
Mhm.
alternative they had was a rock. So I guess they picked me. So I started helping them. And I accidentally got really good at coaching other people and how to communicate ideas. So by the time I was 22, I landed a great job at IBM. I was set to have
Wow.
my corporate American career, but I had the idea for Master Talk because I realized that everything that I was sharing with the students wasn't available for free on the internet. So I started
Mm.
making videos and it just turned into something I never could have imagined.
I love that phrase. Although it was either you or a rock to get some kind of assistance. So I could say like, oh, so you're better than a rock.
I am.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so you started you just started doing videos just thinking like what was going to come out of this. And I love the fact, looking at your profile, you started by doing videos in your mom's basement.
Which I'm still based, by the way. All my CEO clients know that.
Oh, okay. Well, and welcome to my world. You're in my basement right now. This is the girl cave. So thanks for being here.
I love that.
I know, isn't it funny? So how did that go about? How did you start that? And when did you ever think it would get to this point where you are so big and so popular?
I mean, let's paint the picture here, Cheryl. 22-year-old kid making videos in his mom's basement who had no money because I hadn't started working yet, and has a bachelor's degree in accounting. I didn't think that this was going to amount to anything. I was just making videos for fun. And not
Hmm.
because I was looking to make money or anything, but it's also because I wasn't a philanthropist either. IBM was paying me really well, and that was
Uh-huh.
my focus. That's how I'd spent my whole life trying to get. That's why I did these case competitions in the first place to get
Mm.
that job. But
Mm-mm.
as I was working towards my corporate career and I kept
Hmm.
posting a video every week, 9 months into Master Talk, I went to an event called Summit of Greatness, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's in Columbus, Ohio, of all places, by a guy named Lewis Howes who delivers this. So I
Uh-huh.
went to this event and I met my business partner at a
Hmm.
5 a.m. workout. And he looked at me and he said, "So, kid, what do you do?" And I said, "Oh, I make YouTube videos." He's like, "Oh, that's cute. So what do you make YouTube videos on?" And I said, "Communication and public speaking." And he took an interest in me because he said,
Hmm.
why is this guy making videos? And he
Hmm.
essentially looked at me and changed my reality. He said, "You know, you can charge executives thousands of dollars for coaching, right?"
Hmm.
And I couldn't believe him. I said that wasn't true. And he wrote me my first check. That's when I realized that Master Talk was a lot more than just a kid in a basement. It was an opportunity for me to make every human being on earth an exceptional speaker.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. And you're right. You have to have really good communication skills to succeed in this world, not only as an entrepreneur or a business person, but just in even personal relationships and finances. And if you don't have the skills to be able to present yourself well or to communicate with somebody, you're kind of toast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's the competitive edge. that a lot of people don't think about. We have goals with our health, we have goals with our relationships, we have
Mhm,
goals for our businesses, Cheryl, even our life.
mhm,
How many of us have communication goals? Very few.
mhm. Until you find yourself in that moment where I have to get up and speak. And then it's like reality hits. And so does the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and you're just like fight or flight. And that's never a really good place to start, is it?
Absolutely. For me, the best place to start, Cheryl, is changing the energy around communication. A lot of
Mhm,
people think that the biggest challenge is fear. And I
mhm,
actually disagree, funny enough. I think that
mhm,
the biggest challenge is motivation. Because if we're not motivated enough to speak, we're never going to crush the fear that it's associated with. So the
mhm,
question I always get people to think about, Cheryl, and it's one that most of us have never even thought of, is how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? Because a lot of us, we dream about the expensive vacations we want to go on, the
mhm,
things we want to buy. But
mhm,
when was the last time we dreamed about our comms? And the answer for most of us is never. So we need to start that process so that we can
mhm.
show up to communication mastery with excitement and enthusiasm to even work on it in the first place.
And let me just ask you this. I know the answer already, I think, but it's never too late to start, right?
Never too late to start. Absolutely. And I'm glad you emphasized that because just so people know this, I'm 26 and I'm super transparent about that. But my
Mhm,
average client age
mhm,
is between 45 and 50. So
mhm. Okay.
trust me when I say with experience that it's never too late as long as you're always willing to be a beginner. And
Mhm,
that's what I appreciate about the world's best anything is that
mhm,
they're always willing to challenge what they know. Hence why I make all these weird videos on train wides and martial art because I always want to make the world my teacher. And if you have
mhm.
that mindset in anything, and especially comms, you'll definitely be successful.
Mhm. And the desire for lifelong learning, because we always want to be improving ourselves, and this is one way of doing it. And I just my own personal story. I became like a speaker. Oh my gosh, it was after my first book came out, so I took a couple of workshops and did Toastmasters for about 6 months, and so this is like 2017, and I had been on stage before as a dancer, and in my previous professions, I had done a lot of speaking and teaching and educating, patients, parents, family members, other healthcare providers. But when it came for me to stand up and talk about myself and present, it was like, ugh, nothing was coming out. And of course, I was practicing right down here in the girl cave in front of my, with my phone and everything, doing the right thing I was told to do. And there was a gentleman in town, an elderly gentleman who used to train speakers, kind of, I'm using air quotes. And he used to say, you don't have to be good to start, but you have to start to be good. And my starting place was right down here in the girl cave where I was safe and just, stumbling over words until I got the confidence to be able to go out and start speaking in public.
I love that, Cheryl. And thanks for sharing that story. I feel that's super powerful because
Mm,
I'm the same way. I grew up in a city called Montreal. And for those who don't know, Montreal is a city where you need to know how to speak French. So my
mm,
whole life, not only was I scared of communication and presentations like most of us, I had to present in a language I didn't even know.
ooh.
Right? So I'm looking at the audience, and I'm a 7-year-old kid with a crooked left arm, and I'm looking at the crowd and I'm saying, bonjour. So was it efficient? And then the second point is going to my left arm. I had a surgery when I was younger, so I had a
Mhm.
big cast, and even to this day, the arm's still crooked. So
Oh,
even when I keynote, people see it, and I still have to show up with confidence. So I had a
mhm,
lot of social anxiety in the early stages of my life. And the
mhm.
third piece that I mentioned a little bit earlier, people think that I have a PhD in communication. I have a bachelor's degree in accounting, so trust me, if I can do this, anyone can.
I love that. That is so amazing. So what happened with your arm, if you don't mind sharing?
Oh, I don't mind sharing anything. You don't worry, Cheryl. So what happened in a nutshell was when my mother gave birth to me, I was born upside down. So
Oh.
when right, so when you're born upside down, I'm not a medical doctor or anything. There's kind of like two ways of pulling you out. The first one is to cut the stomach of the mother open, which is a
Uh-huh.
very dangerous procedure and it risks the person's life. And the second one that they opted for is to pull me out of a vacuum, like out of a vacuum,
Oh.
with a vacuum. So
Mhm.
when they did that, it dislocated my left shoulder, and that's
Oh.
why I have a crooked left arm.
Well, but that crooked left arm really hasn't impeded your success or your ability to do things, because you are a martial artist. And I'm saying you are a martial artist because I know that you earned a brown belt, and that is actually very impressive. So tell us a little bit about how you got into martial arts and what it meant to you. And then the third part of the question is how that impacted you as a speaker.
Absolutely, Cheryl. Beautiful questions. So the first one isn't super exciting. It was an accident. My cousin just wanted to join this karate school. We didn't have a
Mhm,
lot of money growing up. So even
mhm,
spending 50, $60 a month, which
mhm,
wasn't obviously that expensive, to put me through this experience was a lot to ask for my parents. So
mhm,
what happened was my cousin wanted somebody to do it with him. So
mhm,
they pretty much said, Brenden, can you please do this? And
mhm,
I actually didn't really want to do it, but my parents kind of forced me to. They said, "Hey, like your cousin's doing it." And it kind of started becoming a game to me where every
mhm.
belt is a new challenge. And how Kenpo works, or at least the style I learned, is every belt has a secret lesson. So, as for example, like courage or like
Uh-huh.
resiliency. So every belt test had a specific approach
Mhm,
to it, and it taught me very valuable lessons about life. But the other piece that I got from my renchis and my senseis at the time is really the idea of word is the bond, and having a high integrity and competitiveness for what you're doing
mhm,
in life. And that's what martial arts teaches you. Even if I never did it competitively, it was really about saying, how are you showing up in the world, and what standard are you setting for your
mhm,
life and the way that you show up for the communities around you. And that mindset really helped me in every area of life, especially when I started leading teams in university and I
mhm.
became the person to help others to succeed in these case competitions. I needed to lead them and be the example first, and I got a lot of that from martial arts.
Oh, that's awesome. I just love that. And, it just, it makes me giving me chills just thinking about that, because, I know what martial arts did for me. And I love the fact that each belt level had, a specific goal or a specific energy that you were expected to apply to your training. And they really didn't do that so much with us, but there was like the representation of each belt. For example, the white belt was kind of like this open book, or this snowflake, this just starting this new journey, and how exciting. And most students, when they get their white belt, it's just such a huge step. And I mean, to get your white belt, at least in our art, all we had to do was write the check, sign the waiver, get the uniform, and the white belt came with the uniform. And, typically students are so excited to get that white belt and start this journey. And I even say, in my book, it's like, that was not the case with me. I didn't want the black belt. I didn't want the yellow belt. I didn't even want the white belt, but it came with the uniform. So I had to take it.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then, of course, magic happened, and that's a whole nother story. So with the martial arts, and you did mention train rides, so you use the entire world or the entire environment as your dojo, basically, because you're constantly learning. And I love your YouTube channel. I love some of your videos that I had the chance to look at today, and I already subscribed to your channel, and so I will be looking at more of them later. But how you use things like dance, martial arts, train rides, puzzles, poker, all of these different situations that we're in, in life, you use that to fine tune your skills as a communicator. So could you
Absolutely.
talk about that?
For sure, Cheryl. Happy to. So the way that I would start this conversation with Cheryl is, who are we being in this moment? What is our identity? And I feel the reason I've gotten in these directions is a lot more than just, oh, have the mindset of a beginner or learn from the world. It's an embodiment of how you want to show up in the world. And I got this from, I believe, to be one of the greatest coaches on earth, a guy named Steve Hardison. He's referred to as the ultimate coach. And he says something which I think is so powerful. He says the way that you're being in the world is more important than what you're doing in the world. And he helped me build an identity for myself that I repeat to myself all the time in my life, that I'll list out, which is essentially a list of a string of letters, which is simply this: TBCCTEL. So TBCCTEL, what does that stand for? The best communication coach that ever lived. So that is the identity that you choose for yourself. And when you choose that identity, you then make better decisions for your life. So if I was the best communication coach that ever lived, I need to act in a way that is superior to just making a few bucks. Then that's superior in a way to just making ends meet and just going about my day, or rather settling for the expertise I already have. It implies that every time I show up on a podcast, every time I make a video, I need to show up in a way that Dale Carnegie would be proud of. In a way that if he was alive and he would look at me and say, wow, this guy is really passing the torch on. He's really creating an environment for billions of people to learn from and get the actions. And this requires a bruising of the ego. So every time that I think about a new idea, I always push myself to get smarter and better and faster because the world needs me to. I honestly believe that I've been called, Cheryl, in this world to create a body of knowledge of communication that has not existed prior to my birth. And when you have that identity, you'll do anything to win. And that's what I hope to instill in other people.
So basically, you're talking about mindset as well. This is, once you get out of that, oh my gosh, I'm scared to death to get on this stage and, do I have lipstick on my teeth, or, all of those things that, your mind just goes crazy. It's like, hey, you got this. You just take the stage, you just step up to the plate, and there you are. And once you have that mindset, your brain starts to like, it's like a reel that it keeps playing, that, yeah, you can do this and you can do this. And then you keep taking it to another level.
Absolutely sure. And one thing I'll emphasize, I don't think I've shared that on a podcast for the whole TBCC because it makes me sound cocky. So what I would say,
Oh.
it's more of, I know for you it doesn't, obviously. I think it's more of a staircase. So of course, 5 years ago, which is crazy to think about, if somebody had told me that not only was I going to get my dream job, that I was going to quit it to be a YouTuber and a communication coach and have all this weird identity that I do now, I would have called you crazy. I'd be like, this person has a mental illness. The person is telling me this. So the idea is that mindset is progression. And let's start with step one, which is, and I know you'll appreciate this, for me, communication is like a boxing match, right? Where one side of the ring is the fear, right? The anxiety, the stress that we might have around communication. And the other side of the ring is the message. Why does this matter? Why is this important for us to share? And the analogy that I want to bring here to the table is the goal is not to remove the fear, because we all have it and we always will. If Elon Musk called me while we were having lunch, Cheryl, and he said, hey, Brenden, I need you to come coach me. I'll pay you $1 million. Would I shit my pants? Obviously. Right? Of course I would.
I love that. That's hilarious.
Right? It is true. Like, I just would. Like, there's always a level. Yeah, sure, I can coach him and get him the result, but I'd be nervous. So the goal is not to say how to remove the fear, but rather make sure that when your fear and your message meet in the middle of that damn boxing match, that your message is winning the match, that your message is getting the knockout punch. In the same way, why did I start MasterTalk? Right? Why did this 22-year-old kid think he could make a difference? Go ahead, jump in.
Okay. No, I'm just laughing because I thought that was hilarious because, of course, I would feel the same way. I mean, who wouldn't feel the same way? But I just keep thinking back even to the early days when I was really putting myself out there. And all I wanted to do was either crawl under the bed and hide instead of, leaving the house and doing, my speech, either crawling under the bed or actually, pulling. I couldn't fit. So that wasn't an option, but just getting in the bed, pulling the covers over my head and just not even leaving the house. I mean, that the fear, the struggle is real. But yeah, you have to say, okay, yeah, this is terrifying, but that's okay. I'm going to do it.
Absolutely sure. I mean, and thanks for sharing that as well. It's pushing ourselves to do that. And there's a few
Mhm,
more layers we can add on top of that. So going back to why did I take action? In the
mhm,
same way you did, despite the fear, you still
mhm,
went for it. Why? For me, it was never because of the executive. Obviously, I love them to death. They pay my bills and life is great with them. But the
mhm,
reason I started MasterTalk was for the
mhm,
15-year-old girl who could never afford me.
mhm,
That's the game. Because the next Elon Musk is probably 12-year-old girl in Cambodia, because Elon was born in South Africa, and all of people know this, and he
right.
was there for most of his tens, and nobody helped him with his communication skills. And once you
Mm,
do that, it pushes you to take the necessary action, which
mhm.
brings us back to this question that really pushes people into action, which is simply this: who suffers from your inability to take action every day? And once you
Mm.
get really clear on who that person is, it forces you to spring into what you need to do.
Oh, I just absolutely love that. Now I'm thinking about that little 15-year-old girl. But it's really that's a great example because even on, I always say that my podcast is about overcoming obstacles and a few other things, which includes finding your voice. So being able to find your voice and stand your ground, and especially when you're talking about especially teenage girls in that age group, it's so difficult for them to be able to find their voice. I mean, there's under so much pressure. And I was a 15-year-old girl a long time ago, so I remember what it was like. But I think it's even harder in today's society because of all of the social media and the screen time and trying to everybody wants to look so good and the expectations are just not really realistic.
I completely agree. And that's the struggle. And when we find who that person is, right? Talking Morris is the best. Every why always begins with a who. If
Mhm,
you know who that person is and you actually meet that person, like you
mhm,
make it real in your life. For me, it wasn't
mhm.
just about like imagining the 7-year, like I met her. Like I do
Aw,
pro bono work,
uh-huh,
and that connection creates emotional resilience for yourself to
mhm,
overcome any shortcomings, any obstacles. Because trust me, there was many to build MasterTalk. Like,
mhm,
how do you get someone double or triple your age to pay you the same amount of money that someone the same age as them is charging them for the same service? So
mhm,
that's a big one, and there's many of them in any message that we share. But if the who that we're searching for,
mhm,
that we're believing in, that we're helping is more important, and we put that
mhm,
person on the pedestal, we'll become
mhm.
unbeatable for sure.
I just have to backtrack because you were talking about why would somebody like, twice your age or whatever pay you this. I actually prefer sometimes working with younger people because I like their energy better. I like the fact their enthusiasm. And I just really prefer, I mean, I hang out with a lot of people who are a lot younger than me. And it's just because I think it makes me a more well-rounded person. And some people in my age group, and I cannot believe I'm going to say this, sometimes they're boring. They're just set in their ways. And, I hang out with a 72-year-old pole dancer, I mean, it's just awesome.
That's
So, yeah.
awesome. I love
Yeah.
that. And the reason I believe that's the case, Cheryl, for a lot of us, unfortunately, is it really goes back to this idea of identity. Because once
Mhm.
we start becoming successful in life, that's actually the real danger. Because
Mhm.
we can't set a big enough vision for ourselves beyond what we had in mind. Because if we don't continue to expand that, our
Mhm.
energy starts to deflate over time.
Mhm.
And that's how we need to show up in the world for sure.
Mhm. So I want to go back to, of course, now I figured out that yes, you did quit your job at IBM. Was that a hard decision for you, or was it like a natural segue? And how many people told you you were out of your mind?
Definitely, a lot of people told me I was out of my mind.
Mhm.
So let's go through all of it. So at the beginning, people, including me, by the way, thought MasterTalk was a stupid idea. Okay, who's
Mhm.
gonna watch like public speaking YouTube videos? Maybe like 7 people. So I was just making videos for fun. I didn't think it was
Uh-huh.
great. And I had this brilliant idea, and I'm being sarcastic here, that if I sent 50,000 emails, 50 grand, if I sent
Okay.
50,000 emails, okay, to professors of universities and colleges, I would blow up my YouTube channel. So that
Mhm.
works well in theory, right? In your mind, that makes sense. And then you start sending those emails and you get a couple of responses. You're like, oh, this is not working. Or people are responding like, who's this kid? Like, you're too young. This is stupid advice. Stop doing this. First of all, you don't call me my first name. You get a lot of that. And then
Wow.
you're just, but it was my fault. And the reason it was my fault is because I was stubborn. Is I should have stopped after 500 emails, but I literally did 50,000. I literally did 500 a day for 100 days straight. It was really dumb. Anyways, so there's that challenge. But going back to the job and quitting it, Cheryl, absolutely. Quitting my job to this day is the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. And it has nothing
Wow.
to do with money. It was because it required a changing of my core identity from Brenden, the successful executive who was on the rise, the rising star, crushing all the cylinders, to actually giving up 75% of that salary to start MasterTalk on a whim. So how did I overcome it? It's not as hard as people think it is. That's what I'll start with. I call this side hustling comfortably. That's always the advice I give on the show, which is simply this. Don't just quit your job cold turkey. Do a couple of things, especially for me. I was the only breadwinner of my family when I quit. Like I fund my sister's education. I pay for my mom so she can be retired, not have to work at a stupid factory. That was my why when I was younger. So I didn't want to quit. So I did 3 things before I left my job. I had a 9-month emergency fund, number 1. Number 2 is I had a clear 90-day plan on replacing all of my income, and I did it in 60. And the third thing is I had already started making money. This is the most important one. I already had clients paying me the rates that I charge today before I quit my job. So I probably replaced 30-40% of my income. And a bonus they'll add on top, I had really good relationships at IBM in case I screwed it up. Just in case.
Okay. So
That's
you
the
had
key.
a plan B just in case.
I did. And I think people burned the ships too quickly, personally.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, though, I got to go back to the stubbornness because I thought I was stubborn, but you got me beat. I think even I would have given up after about, 500 responses like that. But yeah, kudos to you. And I think the important point to make here is sometimes it really does pay to be stubborn.
It does. It does. It really does. And that's why it's so important to go back to what are we trying to do this for? Because if I didn't have that North Star to really serve that individual, because I was going to make the money anyways. It wasn't about that. It was really just saying like, okay, how do I do something meaningful with my time? Because that's the resource I can't get back. And when I realized that that was what I wanted to spend my life doing, I literally told myself, Cheryl, if I had to go on 10,000 podcasts and it was only the host listening to me, like only them, even if I do hours, 60 minutes, 60 minutes, 60 minutes, obviously, luckily for me, it didn't take 10,000, but I had that mindset in mind that if I had to talk to 10,000 Cheryls, at least I would have 10,000 subscribers. And that mindset really was effective for me. And you get a lot of that from martial arts too, where you just got to roll with the punches.
Exactly. You got to take the hits and recover from them. Evade, deflect, and redirect is what we always say in our art. But you have a lot more than 10,000 followers.
Right.
It's very impressive.
Thank you, Cheryl. But the point I want to drive with YouTube is I've been doing this for 3 years and 8 months now, so a little over 3.5 years. But the point I want to drive is it took me 2.5 to get to 10,000. That's the part that people don't get. And there's even a lesson on top of that, which is teaching the chapter. I always believe empathy speak to the person you used to be, not the person you are today. So for me, what people don't know is how I got my first 1,000 subscribers, because it only took me 4 months.
Okay.
But when I say that, people think immediately, oh, Brenden just dished out great content. Oh, Brenden just the algorithm just said I choose you, son. And no. I DM 1,700 people. That's what it took. Because remember, Cheryl, I had coached people for free for 3 years from 19 to 22. Lots of good work, because it was never meant to be a business. That's why I'm so passionate about it, as you can tell from the way that I'm showing up on this podcast. So when I had the idea for MasterTalk, I already had a raving fan base. So I went back to those 200 people, those 300 people, and I said, okay, guys, you all got really lucrative jobs at a business school, and I didn't ask for anything. I'm going to ask now. You're going to promote the shit out of my YouTube channel. even if my videos are terrible. And they did. And that's what people don't get. It's not about 1,000 followers. It's about having 1,000 conversations with 1,000 real people. And that's how you blow up a following.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I think we just get so caught up in the numbers, the likes, the, views and all of that stuff. But it's like, who is really not only, following, but who's really listening and who's really taking this information and who is it helping? And so that's
Absolutely.
really, really important. So there's something else I wanted to bring up, because I thought I saw it on either your YouTube or on your website. I can't remember, but I actually bust out laughing when I read it. Dancing alone in your basement. And this really meant a lot, or meant something to me, because especially with the pandemic, and of course I was still, dancing, taking ballet classes several times a week, but then the pandemic hits and it's like, oh my God, I can't take ballet class for 2 weeks. What are we going to do? And then of course it went on and on and on. So basically, this is the girl cave. This is where, the fun stuff happens. But in the other part of my girl cave is actually a ballet studio, a little modified ballet studio. And, it's a cement floor with just linoleum on it. So I did invest in a dance floor, and, I've got a portable bar and everything. And I would be down here in my basement dancing alone in my basement, but I'd be doing Zoom classes. And it was just a very weird, weird sensation. But then before I knew it, it was just like normal. And then when the dance studios opened up, I thought, why should I go to a live class when I can do it here? I don't have to drive. I don't have to deal with traffic, parking. I don't have to put on makeup. I don't even have to put on deodorant. All I have to do is just slide down my stairs, and there I am, dancing in my basement. So that's kind of what it meant to me. But what does that mean to you, to dance alone in your basement?
Absolutely. It's such a funny side note, Sharon. You probably get this often. Is you should make a vlog of your girls' cave. I'm sure there's so many people who would want to see it. Like I don't like. I really want to see this. It's like, I hope you. I think
Yeah, it's a fantastic girl cave. And it's so funny, because when we bought this house, I almost said, "No, I don't think so." Because it had a horrible fireplace, and to me, there's meaning behind that. And this spiral staircase that goes down to this raw basement. I mean, it was pretty raw. They had like a bedroom kind of ish with 1970s shag carpet in it and something else, and it's like, oh God, that I'm not sure about this basement. And every time I would walk past the staircase, you could see in the basement this raw cement floor with writing on it and everything. There were 2 teenage boys apparently who had lived here and actually lived in the basement, which I think is kind of crazy. But anyway, my father was a builder. And, he built the house that I grew up in. He literally did the work himself, did it was a beautiful stone house. So, when he saw the house, he says, I will help you build the basement. So he and my husband, who really can't do anything construction wise, but my dad coached him, and they actually the basement is almost completely finished. And when they were visiting, my dad and my husband would work on the basement. My mom and I would go shopping and stuff. And then we'd come back and we'd sit on these stairs, on the steps, to see their progress and everything. And I got to tell you, Brenden, I absolutely love the smell of sawdust, because to me, it means, building, growing, expanding. And I remember even as a little girl, the smell of sawdust, my dad was always building something. So basically, once then the pandemic hit, and there I am in this basement, and I even have some of my grandmother's furniture and stuff down here. And if you look at that screen, the dog's over there above my shoulder. My grandmother actually did that when she was in Czechoslovakia as a little girl. So all of these memories, and I would be in my basement doing ballet class, and back bending and looking, it's like, oh my God, had I realized all those years ago when my dad, was building this out for me, and how happy he would have been to know that, I had this space which was just all mine. And of course, my husband doesn't even come down here. It's like girl cave. But yeah, so it's a wonderful, it all came together in like made the pandemic and being stuck at home a little bit more palatable for me. So yeah, that's the long story.
That's awesome. I'm glad you shared that. It's so cool. Because I love that you call it a girl cave, because you're so authentic to who you are. And I feel that inspires so many people. Where people go like, I should have a girl cave too.
Every woman should have a girl cave, not a she shed. No, 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 no. It's the girl cave. That's where things really happen.
I love it.
Okay, so that was a long segue, but back into you dancing in your basement.
It's all good. It's all good, Chad. I was just curious. But yes, So what I'll say around dancing alone in my mother's basement, which I do quite a bit,
Mhm,
is more of a principle rather than the activity itself,
mhm,
which is the following. Are we intentionally making small decisions, not big decisions, but small decisions that make us a little bit happier every day?
mhm,
That is fully aligned to what we want to do. For somebody listening to this podcast, it might not be dancing alone in their mother's basement or, clubbing with their family every 6 months or knowing how to karaoke in 8 different languages, which all
mhm,
happen to be things that I do. For the person who's listening to this, it will be maybe it's eating a sundae every Friday.
mhm,
Maybe it's reading a book for a few minutes a day.
mhm,
It's about making those intentional decisions. A coach told me this once. She called it the bliss list, where you make a small list
mhm.
of items that bring you just a little bit of joy, not crazy hard to do. And if you just do that a little bit, your energy, your state, your being, whenever you show up
Mhm.
in any meeting, will be really, really high. And for me, dancing, what it means to me is that ability to be free and not be fearful of the judgment of other people and just be who I want to be.
I love that, and I love the blitz list. I think people get so caught up in, what's going to make me happy. I need this very, very nice vacation, and if I could only get this 2-week vacation, I'll be happy. And they miss all the tiny little opportunities that we have during the day. Even just going, doing mundane things, going to the grocery store, which I absolutely hate. But you never know. I ran into somebody that I hadn't seen in years, and we had such an incredible conversation. And people were walking around us because I think we were blocking the entrance, and they were all like smiling at us every time because they passed, and it was like we were having such a good time together, and other people were happy just watching that, and it was just it was a lovely experience.
Oh yeah, like there's a great quote by a guy named Ali Gadet, and he says, "If you help one person, the world will give you permission to help everyone else." And what you
Mm,
just shared there, Cheryl, is a great example of how the trickling effect of impact or just presence is when you
mhm,
show up with that energy, it really makes people's day.
mhm.
And I love that because I think it's such a great embodiment of it.
And it works the opposite way too. If somebody's having a really bad day, that can really impact you too. So you just want to
Oh
be
yeah.
aware of that and kind of like avoid some of those little pitfalls. So I could talk to you all day. Oh, but you're
Honestly, likely. I could talk to you for 3 hours straight easily.
well, and of course I've got the master communicator. So with Master Talk, and I thought I saw this on your Facebook page this morning, is that you finally got Master Talk trademarked.
I did. It took like 2.5 years.
I know it takes forever. So congratulations.
Absolutely, thank you. It was all thanks to my lawyer, Joey Vital. He did a great job with it, so I'm grateful.
Yeah, I don't know what we would do without our attorneys. So what do you see as the future of Master Talk? Where do you see this going? And what is your hope and dream?
Absolutely, Cheryl. So I'll tell you a story around this. So I was watching the TikTok the other day,
Mhm.
a TikTok the other day, and it was. I mean, at this point, it's turning into the TikTok. So there you go.
Yeah.
And it was about Taylor Swift,
Oh,
and she wins this award called Woman of the Year. It's by a
uh-huh,
company called Billboard, the music company. And
uh-huh.
she's standing up on that stage and she looks at the crowd and she says this, and it's 2014. She goes, "Your future Woman of the Year is 11 years old right now,
Aw.
right? She's in a choir, she's learning how to sing, and we need to take care of her." And then what happens is the TikTok flips. And then it's
Mhm,
7 years later. And Billie Eilish becomes the youngest inductee in Billboard's history to win Woman of the Year at the age of like 17 or something. So she gets
mhm.
up on the stage. She's got her big bulky jacket. She's got her big glasses. She looks at the crowd and she goes, "What's up, guys? I don't know how I won this award. I'm barely a woman, but like it's great to be here." And then she keeps rambling on. And the last 30 seconds of her speech, Cheryl, completely changes my life. She looks at the crowd. She's rambling. She's rambling. She's rambling. And then she goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like in 2014, I watched Taylor Swift's speech too. And I was 11 years old."
Oh God, I got chills.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh,
And I was learning how to sing and I was in choir and you all took care of me. So thank you
oh.
so much, Billboard, for this award. And then she walks away. And the reason it caught me, Cheryl, because I have nothing to do with music, is, or I guess my videos might prove otherwise, but I looked at that video and I immediately thought of the next Elon Musk. Because when
Mm,
Elon was a 15-year-old kid and nobody gave a shit about him and he was in South Africa, nobody sat him down for 45 minutes and said,
mhm,
"Hey, you might actually do something important with your life. Let me just coach you on your filler words, your ums, your ahs." And he still would have became the success he is today. But he would
mhm,
have had a much easier route there if he was just a better speaker. But then I really felt my why coming in because I thought about the next Elon. And I said, what
mhm,
are we doing for her? Are we taking
mhm.
care of her from a communication perspective? And that's when the light bulb hit is I was the only human being who thought about that little girl from that
Wow.
angle. I was like,
Mhm,
holy shit. Like if I'm the only person right now that she can like, because I'm young enough that she can watch
mhm,
my videos and learn from me,
mhm,
is if I don't do this, I'll have done a massive disservice to the world. So what's the mission? The
mhm,
mission, Cheryl, is how do I use my vehicle, my knowledge, my expertise to empower every genius of our society for the
mhm,
rest of time to become
mhm,
exceptional communicators? Because if they all do, the best ideas will rise to the top. They'll get shared a lot faster, more effectively, more efficiently, and the human race as a whole would
mhm.
advance at light speed. And that's my North Star.
Oh, I just want to say hallelujah, brother. That's just amazing. That's awesome. And now too, thank you for telling us that story because then that makes what I saw on your bio or your profile on Podmatch makes more sense now. It was something about, Elon Musk as a 7-year-old girl. Now it makes total sense. So thank you so much for sharing that. So you also have you offer free workshops online. So you want to
Absolutely.
talk about that?
For sure, sure. Before I do, I just want to acknowledge you, Cheryl. I really appreciate your generosity, your kindness, the way that you show up for others. This is really one of the best interviews I've ever done in life. And it would have been possible without the space you created for this. So I really appreciate you doing incredible work. Just wanted to
Oh,
put it
thank you
out there.
so much. I
You
really
deserve it.
appreciate it. Oh, and
Of
coming from a
course.
master communicator, it's like, oh my goodness, you have no idea how difficult it was for me to start this podcast. And there's a whole nother story behind it. Like everything else in my life, I did not go willingly and I was kind of dragged into it and I
That's
knew
true.
nothing. I did not know what a podcast was. I did not know why I would want one. I did not know, what the purpose was. And I ended up just entering this contest for podcasters just because I thought, well, hey, this woman who's having this contest, she's a local talk radio host. I like her, I follow her. And if I join this contest, maybe I'll learn something about podcasts just in case I ever want to do one day way in the future. And I might meet this lady in person and that would be awesome. So I entered this contest and it was 8 weeks of pure hell, anxiety, and stress. And I'm a baby boomer, so technology does not come easy to me. And she's telling us all these instructions go ahead and download this software and do this. If you don't know how to do it, just ask a teenager. And I'm like, my closest teenager is 1,500 miles away. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? So anyway, I did not win the contest, but she invited me onto her platform. So I was actually on this person's platform for about 9 months before I went out on my own. So thank you for saying that because I came from a place where I knew nothing.
I love that show. And I'm super, super happy and grateful that you did end up doing this. Amazing,
Thank you.
amazing. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
before I get to the workshop, and she didn't ask me to do this for those who listen to the pod. I think the most important thing you can do is give her a 5-star review because she deserves it. So that's
Oh,
that's what I would do. That's the
thank
first
you.
thing. And then if you want to come to my free workshops, you can sign up at rockstarcommunicator.com or watch me on YouTube, MasterTalk. But the most important thing I'd love for everyone to do is really give Cheryl a 5-star review, which I will
Oh,
do after this episode.
Oh, thank you, Brenden. You're awesome. I just love you. You're great. Thank you. But for my audience, I do want you to check out his rockstarcommunication.com because that's where you get free 90-minute training on Zoom. And it's just not one of those things where you just sit there, everyone's muted, and Brenden just goes blah, 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 blah. Because you do interact with the people on the workshop, right?
That's correct, right? That's why I wanted to change the way we looked at these workshops because they're so boring, a lot of them. And these are live; these are not recorded.
Mhm.
Recorded stuff is on my YouTube, but this is really like I'm there, I'm coaching people. It's fire, and I try to make it super energetic. And you
Mhm.
could definitely go to rockstarcommunicator.com to get
Mhm.
access to that for sure.
Well, I will definitely be signing up for one of those because I would love to see you in action. I mean, I already saw you in action here, but I'd love to see one of your workshops. I think it'd be absolutely terrific.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. This is awesome.
And all of your links are going to be on the show notes, of course. But if you want to give a few more links to the audience of where they can find you, how they can connect with you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure, Cheryl. So I would say rockstarcommunicator.com is the best way for the workshop. YouTube for MasterTalk. There is a third one, but it requires something very difficult, which is knowing how to spell my name. So if you can find me on LinkedIn, if you can make it there, I would love to see you there. I post daily on LinkedIn and I answer all my DMs. That's a great place to start. But I would go to the YouTube channel. You'll find a link or in the show notes to get to my LinkedIn. Yeah.
It's a beautiful name.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, sir.
And Brenden, it has been an absolute joy and a pleasure to have you. I'm so, it's just an honor actually to talk to you and to have you on the show. So thank you so much for being here.
The honor is absolutely mine, Cheryl. Thanks so much for having me.
If you want to take one little moment to share maybe just one pearl of wisdom for anybody who's sitting out in the audience listening to this going, okay, I want to start. Where do I start?
Here's what I'll say, Cheryl. I'll say, how would your life change if you're an exceptional communicator? A lot of people, when they hear that question, Cheryl, they usually say, oh, that's cute. That's a nice question. But here's what very few people do is that they take 15 minutes to actually reflect on the question. I've been reflecting on it for 7 years and I still am. And I probably will for the rest of my life, but I'm not asking for 7 years to get to the very entangled story that I told. That's very intricate around Taylor Swift and Billy, and that took a long time for me to build. But in terms of for today, start that journey, 15 minutes. Just reflect on that question. How would my life change? Because what's great about the answer to this question, Cheryl, is it's different for all of us. For some of us to become a big podcast host, it's to be a better guest on a show, it's to be a speaker on a stage, but it could also be being a better mother for your children. It could also be the way that you order food at a restaurant and making that waiter feel really special because he's having a really shitty day because all the customers suck that day. Or it could be meeting new friends when you travel. Communication is every interaction of our life, Cheryl. It's the way that we lead a more fulfilling life. It increases the quality of how we interact with others. And once we realize that, which is the most important part, we'll start to take it more seriously.
That's absolutely beautiful. So, and you are the master of communication. It has been such an honor to talk to you.
Likewise, Cheryl. Thanks so much.
And everybody, thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you as always. And do check out Branden's YouTube channel. The guy is fantastic. He has so much wonderful content. And even in the, it was probably 15 minutes I was taking to look at all of this, it gave me so much to think about in just that short period of time. So I'm really excited. I think it's going to help take my communication skills to a higher level, and it can certainly help you as well. So do check him out. He's a great guy, as you can tell. And that is the way of the FemiNinja.